What's up, y'all? Solomon here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today's video, 5 common mistakes that I see beginner players making all the time. Try to avoid these, and you're going to find yourself with better opening positions and better middle game chances. The first example is moving the same piece multiple times. The reason for this, guys, is that we're simply stronger with all of our pieces engaged opposed to just one. And if we use the same piece and kind of just keep dancing around with it, the opponent has the opportunity to get all their pieces into the game. And again, they're just going to be much stronger in that position. They're going to have more firepower. Chess is a race, right? We're trying to get everybody involved as fast as we can. And moving the same piece and dancing it around is often simply wasting time. Let's look at this first example. Let's say here white plays a move like e4. By the way, great option. This is what I recommend for you guys that are just learning how to play chess. Really helps you get these back rank pieces involved. Let's say black responds by doing the same thing and white plays here. By the way, I don't really think this is a great option. It's not a blunder by any means, but this bishop isn't really doing anything that the queen wasn't, right? I think a move like bishop c4 is much better. All that to say, let's say this game continues, bring the knight out, okay, and then we bring the bishop here. By the way, I just said this was a good square, and this is a great spot, but notice, guys, we could have just done it in one move, but instead it took us two, and this did nothing but waste time. Right? Let's say black responds by continuing to develop, moving this pawn out so that this light squared bishop can get into the game at some point. Let's say we bring our knight out. Okay, that's a good move, but this one isn't, right? This is just not a great idea. Again, we're moving the same piece twice, and we really don't have any good purpose behind it. This knight is attacking a few pawns, but who cares? They're all very well defended by the queen, the bishop, and the rook as well. So this knight move's pretty pointless, and black can kind of just kick this knight back whenever they want to and then continue developing, right? So this is not a great idea. So that's the first thing, moving the same piece multiple times without really any purpose in mind. Going back to this e4, e5 position, the second thing that I see a lot of beginner players doing, which is a mistake, is not prioritizing central development, right? Not moving pieces towards the center. By the way, in chess, the center are these 16 squares that I'm highlighting. Okay, so these 16 squares are the center, and these 4 are actually considered the sweet center. Okay, so the sweet center are 4 squares, and then these other 12 squares make up the entire center, right? So in a position like this, knight f3 would be a great move. But this would be a mistake, bringing the knight to h3, for multiple reasons. First off, we're not prioritizing central development. And on top of that, this knight simply doesn't have as many options. With the knight on the rim, it's dim. And here this knight only has 4 possible moves, right? It's only attacking 4 squares. If we bring this knight towards the center, it's going to have 8 options available. I don't know about you, but I would much rather have 8 options opposed to 4. I would rather be attacking 8 squares instead of 4. It's going to give me more possibilities in the future, more things that my opponent has to worry about. Always bring your pieces towards the center, especially the knights. All that being said, every single rule, it's not hard set, right? None of these rules I'm telling you are set in stone, but there are times where it's okay. Okay, now most of the time you're going to follow these and you're going to be good, but every once in a while it's like, okay, this isn't the rule, but this is seen as an exception, right? Let me take you to one of those positions. So going back to our very first line against this move h6, I said that knight b5 was a mistake, right? And it is, right? There's no reason we should move this knight twice. We're not hanging it, but why are we wasting time going in circles? That being said, moving the knight here is actually the computer recommendation. And I only do this to tell you that there are exceptions to these rules that I'm putting forth before you today. In fact, this move actually breaks both, right? We're not bringing this knight towards the center, and we just moved it twice. But notice, we have a very clear purpose in mind. We're not just going, you know what, I kind of like my knight on the edge of the board. I just kind of like how it looks. I like it sitting there. We're going, no, I'm actually really wanting to trade off for your bishop. And in fact, right now, this bishop is trapped. There's no way for black to save the bishop here. So we're simply going to snatch this bishop off, and then we're going to have 2 bishops, and they're only going to have 1. And notice here, there's no way for black to save it. Even if they, if they go here or here, again, we're still going to take it with one of our knights. If this bishop goes to somewhere like b4, we're just going to start chasing it around, and we're still going to have this option. So again, there are exceptions to these rules I'm telling you, but most of the time, these are great things to follow. Going back, the third thing that I see often is players not castling, right? Not prioritizing castling. So let's say, we're playing as white here. Black goes into a French defense. Let's just say we go into the exchange, both sides developing as normal. This is great, right? We want to develop our king. We want to castle it and really get it to safety. This does two things, right? I just mentioned it gets us to safety. On top of that, it gets our rook involved, right? With a king here, if we don't castle and we try to get this rook to e1, we're going to have to play some pretty weird chess, right? We're going to have to play something like king d2, get our rook to the center. And with a king here, Black's going to have a lot of ideas in terms of checking it and attacking it and going for that mating idea, right? So we don't want our king to be out in the open. We really want to keep it safe. So that's the first thing. And on top of that, it makes it very easy for this rook to get involved, right? Let's say Black here makes the mistake of not castling, not prioritizing the safety of their king and the development of one of their rooks, and just plays a move like c6. This is not a good idea. It's just not, because now white is able to give a check. And guys, you can't castle when you're in check, right? So in this position, Black has to either move their king here, which is very awkward. Obviously, this is just not a good move. If we see something like bishop e7, we're going to play queen e2 in that case, right? So if you bring the bishop back, we're going to form this battery ram, and we have two attackers on this bishop. So now Black can't castle without simply dropping this piece, because they'd only have one defender. We have two attackers, so we're going to win that trade. And here, going back a couple moves, if we see something like bishop e6, we can now play knight out to g5, right? Continuing to build the pressure. Black can defend it all they want, but we're going to continue to pile pressure. This bishop simply cannot move. And, okay, this is all because the king didn't castle, right? If the king was castled, this bishop could simply just capture ours off, right? So, okay, let's just say Black castles now. Okay, we take it. Black did castle, but it's a little bit too late, right? We snatch this bishop out. Black captures back. We give a check. And, okay, we're just going to win this queen. White's completely crushing that. So that's the third thing. Make sure to castle your king quickly. Okay, don't keep it in the center. There are exceptions. I think the hippopotamus defense is one of them, but 95% of openings, even sometimes in the hippo, you want to castle quickly. Okay, the fourth thing I see is players just pushing pawns, and yet again pushing pawns. Okay, let's look at that. So let's say, this position e4, e5, again, we got to get our pieces out. I'm a really big supporter of moves like knight f3 and bishop c4. Right. But let's see here, white just really likes to push their pawns, right? I see beginners do this quite a bit. Let's say here, white plays a move like c4. They push another pawn. They push another pawn. They keep pushing pawns. Well, y'all, in one sense, it may seem like this is great because we want a space advantage in chess. Why wouldn't we want space? Space equals time. Just like if you're having if you're fighting a war in real life, having land gives you assets. It gives you certain possibilities where, a smaller area, they're more cramped and they can't do as many things. Just like that example in chess, the more space we have, the more options and flexibility we have going forward. That being said, when we push pawns too hard, we're actually kind of putting cracks in the wall a little bit, right? We're letting pieces start to infiltrate when we really don't need to, okay? So in this case, we have some space, but for what reason? If anything, we're just creating more weaknesses. This knight is jumping in. Black's putting a ton of pressure on our weak pawn. Let's say we defend it. This move f5 is played. By the way, this is a good pawn push because it has a purpose, which is really trying to attack e4 and open up this f file. Let's say we take it off and then again, continue to push pawns like crazy, continue to push pawns. Eventually, we're going to pay for it. In this case, Black actually has this opportunity to take on f2 a check. And we're up material for a moment, but not until, after we see this move of bishop g4, white's in some trouble now, right? Because we're in check. The queen's going to drop. This king's got to move. We're losing our queen. And again, we have plenty of pawns out. But in terms of our pieces, none of them have actually left their starting spot, except for our king. Black here, on the other hand, on top of the fact that they're up 4 points in material, they got a very active rook, a knight that can jump into d4 whenever they like. They can also bring this queen into the action. We are in major, major trouble. Okay, so that's the fourth thing. And the final example that I have is moving the queen out. Okay, now, I think in one sense, it makes sense, right? We all know that the queen is the most powerful piece in chess. Why not get that piece out and start doing some damage? Well, it's actually so powerful that it actually becomes kind of weak in a sense. Let's say here, again, this is the best move. We got to get our minor pieces out. Bishops and knights are considered minor pieces. Queens and rooks are considered major pieces. Let's say we don't do this rule of getting the minor pieces out first, and instead we simply drop this queen out to a square like h5. Well, we are making a threat to win this pawn, but black can defend it pretty easily. And it's very interesting here. We can take out plenty of pawns. But is this a good thing for white? It's not, right? I mean, we could take on e5, but then we just got a 1-point pawn, and we just lost our 9-point queen. So we don't want to trade. Black here is going to keep attacking the queen and actually just keep offering trades. Hey, you want to trade with my pawn? You want to trade with my bishop? You want to trade with my knight? The queen doesn't want to trade. By the way, I guess you couldn't really trade with a knight, because if a knight's attacking your queen, you can't see the knight. All that being said, you know, black's going to keep offering trades. And the queen is so strong that a trade isn't good. It's such a valuable asset that you don't want to trade it off. So going back, in this case, we definitely don't want to take there. We could try this move and, you know, go for this little scholar's mate idea on f7. But if black knows what they're doing, they're just going to kick our queen around. Again, not a good trade. We don't want to trade this queen for a pawn. So we're going to bring it back. Let's say black plays this. Okay, black's going, look, we can, you know, I'm really giving you my weaker piece for your queen. And it's interesting because, again, the queen is more powerful than the bishop, but it's so powerful in this instance, it's not the bishop that's running away, but it's the queen, right? We play queen e2, and okay, black, you know, we're really just allowing black with all these moves to continue chasing us around. This is not good, okay? Black here, continuing to chase, continuing to chase, continuing to chase. And in this instance, black can actually, you know, if they want to, they can take on c2 a check and simply win our rook. But let's say black plays the best move here, which is actually bishop out to b4. Whole idea being, if we take this bishop, black has a powerhouse fork, right? Attacking our queen, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. We're simply losing this. So going back, when we do see this move, if we try to save the queen, there's only one safe square, right? Our queen has been running around so much trying to make threats, but if black knows what they're doing, they're just going to keep their position solid and keep kicking our queen around and get development because of our mistake, right? So in this instance, we only have one safe square that doesn't lose the queen, and if we bring it there, black can actually trap it on the spot. Now the best thing we can do is just trade this queen off, so at least we get something for it, but now we're down a queen for only a piece. And notice again the activity that black has in this kind of position. So guys, really as a summary, okay, don't move pieces multiple times, okay? There are instances, again, where that's okay, but most of the time you don't want to just keep dancing around with the piece. You want to have an intention for why you're doing it, right? Going back to this knight a4 move, this move has a purpose, right? And that is taking this bishop on c7. This move, bringing this knight to b5, it's not really doing much, right? You're kind of just going in circles for no good reason, right? Because that's not a threat, because the queen could simply capture back. The second thing, bring your knights towards the center of the board and your pieces in general, but I think the knights are the ones that are really affected because knights on the rim are dim. They're not like rooks, they're not like bishops or queens where they see super far. They're very unique, but they need to be placed properly, right? The next thing is castle. You got to castle your king. Next thing, be careful when pushing your pawns. Pawns are good to move, but we move the pawns in the opening. Sometimes to gain space for sure, but most of the time it's actually get our back rank pieces out, right? Going back to the first position, notice here, these knights don't need the pawn's help. They don't. I mean, these knights can just start jumping around like crazy. You know, we could play a little leapfrog here and just start dancing around if we want to. But all that being said, going back, none of these other pieces can actually legally move, or at least get past these pawns without the pawns moving. Right, this rook's not going to be able to get through. The bishop's definitely not. The queen won't. This bishop won't, and the rook won't. So, you know, we really got to, you know, to push upon that way our back rank pieces can get out. Right, but all that being said, we don't want to just push pawns and push pawns and push pawns, because it makes our fence line so big that the enemy camp starts to infiltrate it. Right, and finally, the last one: don't bring your queen out right away. Right. You know, there are some openings like the Scandinavian defense where it's okay, but really overall, you just want to keep your queen in the back line, right? Same with your rooks. Your rooks kind of work in the same way. Get those minor pieces out, start to break things open, and then the major pieces, the rooks and the queens, really start to get some vision and some tactical ideas. I think the rook is also another good example. Like here, it's just not a good idea for white to get this rook out. It's a powerful piece. It's worth 5 points, but at this point in the game, what is it going to do? All it can do is kind of just attack the pawn. Black is just going to sit there and go, okay, I'll just push my pawn, right? They can push the pawn there. They can defend it. You know, let's say we try to get our other rook out. Well, in this case, black starts to kick our rook around, right? And our rook is so powerful, we have to keep trying to save it. And they're going to keep getting development and more development and more development, right? This is just not good. I guess in that case, we would take the bishop. Yeah, going back, I mean, black would probably just play a move like there and they're fine, right? So all that being said, guys, you know, the 5 things, right? Don't move pieces multiple times, right? Don't do that. You also don't want to bring your knights to the edge. You want to make sure that you're castling quickly. You don't want to push your pawns too often and too much. And finally, you really want to prioritize not bringing your queen out, okay, too early, because it is a strong piece, but you got to do it at the right time. All that to say, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.